Billionaire discovers heart-wrenching truth after seeing his father cry in the maid's embrace. In a moment that could shatter even the strongest man's resolve, Ethan Hawthorne, the world-renowned billionaire, stumbles upon his father, Robert, in a scene that threatens to obliterate everything he once believed. The walls of his opulent mansion pulse with the heavy silence of his father's sobs, encased in the comforting arms of Rosa, their lifelong maid. A low tremor of despair shakes Ethan's foundation, echoing the stark contrast between the gilded life he leads and the raw, poignant reality of the man before him. Raised in a household where every dollar was hard-earned, Ethan shed the weight of his humble beginnings as he climbed the corporate ladder. Now, shrouded in tailored suits and boardroom mischief, he feels the glow of power, and yet it does nothing to fill the growing void in his soul. Watching his father, that once indomitable pillar of strength, reduced to tears, unravels Ethan. How could this happen, he wonders. But beneath the surface, a darker question arises. What have I done? Frozen, he feels the pull of conflicting emotions tightening around his chest. Success had been his life's ambition, yet here in this moment, standing before his father's anguish, he questions the very essence of his achievements. The accolades, the wealth, the empire, are they truly worth it when the cost is his father's heart? The walls of the mansion, adorned with trophies, now feel like a prison of his making. Caught in his thoughts, Ethan remembers his father's sleepless nights, the calloused hands that toiled to cover their basic needs. What has become a billionaire meant if it alienates him from the very values his father instilled? Deep down, he knows Robert has kept the mounting financial troubles to himself, shielding Ethan from the burdens of their reality. But the truth is far more suffocating than Ethan ever realized. As whispers of betrayal begin swirling within his business empire, Ethan confronts a new layer of turmoil. Close allies, men he trusted, are orchestrating underhanded schemes that prey on his father's vulnerability. An insidious betrayal that feels like a knife twisting in his gut. The corporate battles that once exhilarated him now strike a discordant note, juxtaposed against the strain written across Robert's face. How can Ethan profit from struggles he knows nothing about? Each whisper amplifies the disquiet within, a reminder of his own complicity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With his heart racing and muscles taut with unease, Ethan feels the weight of responsibility descend upon him like a shroud. Is this what ambition has wrought? A legacy built on shaky foundations? Erasing the very essence of family loyalty? As he watches Robert's trembling hands clasped within Rosa's, an overwhelming urge to shield his father from further hurt surges within him. He knows he has a choice, one that could redefine everything. Yet as Ethan inches toward his father, poised to bridge the chasm that ambition has created, a loud crash reverberates through the mansion. The moment hangs precariously, an unmade choice suspended in time. The future looms uncertain, leaving Ethan grappling with the weight of his soul's betrayal. Will he step into the light of redemption or retreat further into the shadows of greed? The crash ricocheted off the marble walls like a gunshot, jarring Ethan from his internal turmoil. It was accompanied by a blaring alarm from his office, a harsh reminder of the storm brewing in his professional life. Ethan's instincts kicked in, fueling his simmering resolve as he turned away from the heart-wrenching scene before him, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He took a deep breath, his mind racing. Every second spent watching his father's vulnerability only increased the urgency to confront the chaos in his business. a chaos that transcended his familial bonds and threatened the very fabric of his empire. The thought of betrayal lurked incessantly, its claws digging deeper with each fluctuating heartbeat. Ethan hurried down the lavish corridors, the weight of the moment igniting within him a dual urgency: the desperate need to protect his father from harm, and the necessity of facing the treachery that festered among his inner circle. As he approached the office, a myriad of possibilities unfurled in his mind. What would he discover? Who would he confront? And would he be ready to defend his family and his empire? Upon reaching the office, he found Dan, his CFO, rifling through papers, a look of frantic disbelief plastered across his face. The filters of professionalism he'd relied upon now felt thin. "Ethan, you need to see this!" Dan exclaimed, his face pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. Ethan flinched at the panic lacing his colleague's voice, recalling the loyalty he once believed was steadfast. "What do you mean, see this?" Ethan's tone sliced through the tension. The double-edged sword of anxiety and anger threatened to unravel him further. Dan motioned to the screen displaying a series of financial reports and the evidence of discrepancies too egregious to ignore. Ethan's heart sank further as he scanned the figures, realizing they were indicative of embezzlement, pilfered funds that would lay waste to everything they'd built. "Do you think it's someone on the inside? A calculated hit?" Dan pressed, seeking direction from what now felt like a sinking ship. Ethan leaned closer, dissecting the implications. A tightness gripped him, forcing thoughts of his father's anguish back into his mind. Those who whispered behind closed doors didn't just threaten his finances. They were dismantling the legacy of his family. Was this the consequence of his own success? Had he turned a blind eye for too long, prioritizing profit over people? A revelation struck him with the force of a tidal wave. He had ridden the currents of ambition for years, choosing to overlook the cracks in his foundation. Now, as he faced betrayal, those choices echoed painfully. With renewed clarity, Ethan's desire to shield his father intensified. He couldn't let this moment determine his legacy. "We need to find out who's responsible," he said, his voice low and steady, "and we need to do it together." In that moment, he was reminded of his father's indomitable spirit. Robert had always taught him that true strength lay not just in achieving wealth, but in standing up when it mattered most. The revelation that traversed Ethan's mind was not merely about facing corporate betrayal. It was about reclaiming his integrity. As they began to strategize their next steps, the shadows of doubt receded slightly, but the gravity of betrayal loomed large, and he felt the pull of an impending confrontation gnaw at his resolve. It was no longer just about what was wrong within the company. It had become personal, intrinsically tied to the relationships he held dear. Yet, as Ethan prepared for the inevitable conflict, a fresh wave of dread washed over him, a thought chilling and profound. What if the person behind this betrayal was someone he had trusted completely? The riddle of loyalty tangled within the walls of his heart, ready to unleash chaos. The time had come to face the truth. He needed to uncover the source of the deceit, or risk losing everything he had fought so hard to protect. Ethan stood frozen, the weight of impending confrontation burying deeper into his gut. The urgency that once propelled him forward now felt like a double-edged sword, capable of either cutting through the haze of betrayal or severing the last strands of trust he had left. He exchanged a glance with Dan, whose anxiety mirrored his own. Was his team loyal, or were they saboteurs hiding behind business suits? "All right, we need to create a plan," Ethan said, forcing the words from his tightly wrapped throat. He leaned over the desk, scrutinizing the reports that blared the evidence of treachery. "First, we need to figure out who had access to these accounts. Start with the finance team. I want every single person called in for questioning." Dan nodded, sharpening with vitality. "I'll dig into the access logs. If they've covered their trail, we might still find something. You want to go down the whole hierarchy?" Ethan considered it. Yes, this was a methodical approach, but there was an underlying fear festering within him. What if the evidence pointed towards someone he genuinely cared for? Let's be discreet. We can't afford to alarm anyone out there until we have solid proof. As Dan began gathering resources, Ethan felt an overwhelming wave of clarity wash over him. He could no longer afford the distorting influence of ambiguity. A sharp resolve crystallized within him. He envisioned the conversation he would have with the team, not in anger, but as a mentor who had learned the ropes the hard way. Each person was a thread in the complex tapestry of his purpose, woven into both his success and vulnerability. The next morning, Ethan summoned his team to the boardroom. He paced the polished floor, inhaling the familiar scent of leather and mahogany, but experiencing a jarring disconnect in how each corner of the room now carried the weight of suspicion. No part of this space felt safe. As he stepped forward, silence filled the air, a palpable tension anchoring his heart. "I know that I've been preoccupied, chasing goals and numbers," Ethan began, carefully gauging the expressions around him. "But we are a family here, a business built on loyalty and trust. Recent discrepancies have forced me to question everything." He watched their reactions closely. Tightened jaws, furrowed brows, surprised glances, they were revealing layers of hidden emotions. "I need each of you to remember why you chose to work here. I need your honesty now more than ever." Fear mixed with resolve commanded his tone, awakening collective accountability among the ranks. Each member started to reveal stories of miscommunications, reminders of an unaltered code of trust that they had to reclaim. The conversation began to brew with curiosity and camaraderie, and for the first time, Ethan felt the fissures of betrayal ebb, if only momentarily. By the end of the meeting, a tentative alliance had formed, yet still the shadow of doubt lurked beneath the surface. Immediately after adjournment, Ethan and Dan huddled together, mulling over potential suspects. But a chilling realization struck Ethan anew. What if one of them was a mastermind? What was to stop anyone from pointing fingers while hiding their own sins? "Let's focus on the finance team members' personal aspects. We need to dig deeper than just numbers. Look for connections outside the office. You never know who might be in cahoots," Ethan suggested, his mind racing through possibilities. As Dan turned to launch the next phase of their investigation, Ethan felt the burning clench of dread eclipse any remnants of closure. The stakes weren't just financial anymore. They had transformed into a test of loyalty and honor. The very essence of his leadership was on the line. And as he returned to his office, a fleeting thought gripped him with chilling intensity. What if the betrayal was a blindside he was wholly unprepared to confront, rooted in emotions he had nurtured? Would his rise to reclaim the integrity of his empire lay at the cost of his closest relationships? The answer he sought felt tantalizingly close, yet terrifyingly out of reach. The vibrations of the coming storm thrummed within him. A confrontation loomed, one that would define everything he believed about loyalty, trust, and integrity. The real question was, would he have the strength to face it? Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the stacks of reports laid out before him. The evidence of betrayal felt heavier now. It had shifted from abstract numbers to personal connections, and the prospect of uncovering a mole within his team gnawed at his psyche. Every face that flashed before him became synonymous with the growing dread that there may be someone he trusted entirely capable of unforgivable deceit. He inhaled deeply, forcing himself to acknowledge a truth he had been sidestepping. This investigation was about more than just numbers. It was about the foundation of a character he prided himself on building, an integrity that he now feared could crumble under scrutiny. The morning passed in a blur of meetings. Ethan tried to engage his team, all the while feeling disconnected. Each laughter that echoed off the walls of his office felt misplaced, a jarring reminder of a reality that was beginning to fracture. The dissonance threatened to overwhelm him, but he fought to maintain a facade of calm. "Keep it together," he whispered under his breath, refusing to let the growing anxiety seep into his professional demeanor. He had not risen to the top of his industry by surrendering to fear. No, he had to confront this adversity with intelligence and poise. When lunchtime approached, Ethan crossed paths with Anna from finance. She was seated alone at her desk, furiously typing away, her brow furrowed. He had always admired her dedication. "Anna, can I steal you for a moment?" he asked, his heart racing. She looked up, surprised yet curious. "Of course, Ethan. What's on your mind?" He motioned her to follow him to a quieter area in the office. "I wanted to check in. I realize this has been a stressful time for the team, and I appreciate your hard work." As his words tumbled out, he studied her expression, searching for any inkling of weakness. "Have you noticed anything unusual in the finance department lately?" Anna shifted in her seat, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Honestly, it's been a bit chaotic since you brought up the discrepancies. People are on edge." Ethan nodded, weighing her every word. "But you trust your teammates. I need someone who can keep an eye on things while we dig deeper." "Sure, I can do that," she replied, confidence flooding her tone. He couldn't shake the feeling that her eagerness was laced with uneasy tension. It was subtle, but a flicker of something, fear, crossed her face before she masked it. As they parted ways, he realized his gut was screaming. This was bigger than they both understood. In the following days, Ethan channeled all frustration and confusion into the investigation. With Dan's help, they carefully tracked down external connections, interviewing team members about professional circles that may influence loyalty and trust. With every conversation, Ethan unearthed unexpected revelations, not just about others, but about himself. He found himself wrestling with the moral dilemma of how far to push. Was it necessary to dig into their personal lives for clarity, or was that a breach of trust in itself? The questioning became more intense as suspicious patterns emerged. One afternoon, Dan shared something that unnerved Ethan. "You know, some people have quirks we've overlooked. It's almost like they're masking something." That struck a chord with Ethan. Masks were a recurring theme in their strained atmosphere. The weight of his decisions settled heavily on him. In the pursuit of loyalty, could he risk straining those relationships that mattered? That night, reflecting in the solitude of his office, he grappled with the complexities of leadership. Achieving success often meant making sacrifices, but how much was too much? Unable to sleep, Ethan pored over spreadsheets and access logs, piecing together a jigsaw puzzle that felt like it was mocking his efforts. Was he grasping at shadows, or would the truth emerge? As dawn broke, a failed night of sleeplessness blended into a new day where clarity began to emerge alongside a creeping sense of impatience. A sudden realization washed over him. Perhaps he could leverage the relationships that he had neglected. He needed allies within the team, people he could trust to help him piece together the root of deceit. Ethan gathered the courage to reach out to Anna, intent on setting a meeting, but another pressing thought stopped him cold. Could he fully trust anyone? Returning to his desk, he couldn't shake the anxiety building in his chest. It was time to take more direct action, to confront those who could be implicated. And he would need to reveal his own vulnerabilities to forge deeper connections with the team. But as he stared down at the floor, contemplating his next moves, something heavy fell in the pit of his stomach. The moment had come to face something he had been avoiding, his own hesitations. Would he have the courage to uncover the truth, even if it meant shattering the lives of those he cared about most? The tremors of his thoughts reverberated as a new determination sparked. Addressing the inner turmoil was the next step, but potential fallout loomed large. The time had come to face the treachery head-on, to uncover not just the betrayer, but his own fears. And with that realization weighing on him, Ethan knew he had to rally his team, unveiling his vulnerabilities amidst the chaos. The heart of the matter, could the people he cared for still respect him after the revelations he was about to uncover? Ethan sat at his desk, the morning light lingering through the blinds, casting harsh shadows on the reports that still lay scattered before him. He had spent the night wrestling with the questions that haunted him. How could he lead effectively when suspicion tainted every encounter? Could he reveal his own vulnerabilities in a way that bolstered his credibility without appearing weak? Each passing hour heightened the urgency within him. He had spent too long in the dark corner of analysis, retreating into the numbers, when what he needed was engagement. He needed to transform his discomfort into an authentic connection, both with his team and with himself. Drawing a deep breath, Ethan picked up his phone. His mind fluttered to Anna, and he decided to invite her into the fold more explicitly. "Hey Anna, how about we grab a coffee and talk strategy? There's a lot we can accomplish together," he said, gathering his thoughts as he awaited her response. "Sure, I'd love to," she replied, her voice tinged with enthusiasm. Meeting in the break room, Ethan felt a faint spark of hope. Their conversation began innocuously enough, discussing ongoing projects and minor hurdles, but soon he turned to the critical topic burning in his gut. "Anna, I've sensed an atmosphere of distrust lately. I think some of us might be feeling the repercussions of recent events in our own ways. What do you think?" Anna hesitated, her gaze flickering across the room, as if searching for something that could offer clarity. "You're right. There's tension in the air. People want answers." He nodded, his heart racing. "And I'm looking at everything, but perhaps it's time to confront this head-on. If we're going to find the mole, I believe it starts with trust, starting with you and me. I want us to be open with each other." Her brow furrowed, and for the first time, Ethan saw a crack in Anna's confident veneer. "What do you mean?" "I'm talking about more than work. If we're not truthful about our vulnerabilities and fears, how can we truly support one another?" Anna pulled back slightly, a cautious smile adorning her face. "It's a bold move, Ethan. Transparency isn't easy." But it was time to shine light on the shadows. "I won't pretend that this situation doesn't frighten me. This betrayal feels personal, not just a financial breach, but an attack on the bond we've built. How can I lead if I'm too afraid to expose my own uncertainties?" She stared at him, weighing his words. "That's a complex situation for sure, but I can relate. Knowing you're open could spark a shift in the team, if they see their leader vulnerable yet focused." His determination surged. Encouraged by Anna's willingness to engage, Ethan devised a strategy, not just to confront the betrayal, but to create a safer environment for open dialogue. He needed to host a team meeting, crafting a platform that fostered shared vulnerabilities. As they returned to their desks, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. While confronting the mole was vital, his adaptation as a leader hinged on building a culture of honesty. Throughout the next hours, he meticulously prepared for the meeting, polishing an agenda that promised to empower rather than scold. Yet doubt crept in again, whispering accusations of inadequacy. Could he truly connect with each individual, diffuse their fears, and turn this chaotic tide? With each passing minute, anticipation built within him. The conference room filled rapidly with team members, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Ethan glanced around, catching Anna's reassuring nod as he stepped to the front. Sweating palms betrayed his still raw nerves. "Thank you all for coming," he began, forcing his voice to steady. "Today, we're diving into a tough conversation that affects all of us. I know we've been on edge. Uncertainty can breed distrust. But as your leader, I want to foster an environment where we can speak candidly about our fears." The room remained silent, drawn in by his honesty, teetering on the brink of revelation. He continued, "I'll start by being open about my own, and I hope we can build from there, pooling our strengths instead of letting fear fracture us further." Each word illuminated shared vulnerabilities. Ethan could feel the tension in the air shift slightly, but as he scanned the crowd, whispers of doubt cascaded within him again. Would they embrace his candidness, or would it further strain their already fragile ties? And just as a thought crossed his mind, the unease of deeper revelations, the door creaked open. A shadow loomed behind it, a figure poised to step in with information that could unravel everything. Had they come for answers, or to expose yet another level of betrayal? The weight of the moment hung so thickly in the air that Ethan felt he could suffocate under its pressure. What awaited him now might demand more than he ever anticipated, and in that pivotal instant, the delicate line woven through trust tightened, waiting to snap. Ethan's heart pounded as he turned toward the door, the collective breaths in the room freezing at the sight of the newcomer. The figure hesitated before stepping inside, the tension crackling like static. The person, a middle manager named Justin, had a reputation for being tight-lipped, so his arrival, without the customary clearance, set alarm bells ringing in Ethan's mind. "What do you have for us, Justin?" Ethan's voice held an edge, bristling with unspoken expectations. He felt the weight of his team's anticipation pressing against him, every eye in the room shifting between him and Justin. I just caught wind of some crucial information. It's about the recent incidents." Justin's eyes darted nervously. "I think you'll want to hear this, but I don't know how many of us should actually be here for it." Ethan's inner turmoil churned. Justin's caution echoed the fears that had gripped him for weeks. Should he maintain the transparency he had just pledged to uphold, or protect his team further from the raw edges of truth? He shifted his weight, feeling the stakes rise around him. "Everyone here has a right to know," he asserted, forcing clarity into his own uncertainty. "But Ethan, this could—" "Please, just say it." The command escaped before he could temper it, and Ethan felt an internal tug-of-war between authority and vulnerability. With a deep breath, Justin glanced back at the door but pressed on. "There are rumors that someone inside our ranks has been leaking sensitive information. It's more than just speculation. I couldn't get all the details, but if you—" He hesitated again, seeking the precise words. "If you're looking to expose the mole, you might need to reevaluate who you trust." Ethan's pulse quickened as disbelief tangled with a rush of adrenaline. This was the very revelation he had feared, a reality that could deepen the rift within his team. The room simmered with a growing unease, the air thickening as his mind raced to contemplate the ramifications of disloyalty among their ranks. "What do you suggest we do?" Anna's voice broke through the tension, revealing her unease, but also her steadfastness. He caught her gaze. A mixture of determination and worry reflected back, stirring a resolve within him. "A team-centered approach," Ethan said, finding his footing amid the chaos. "We turn this situation into an opportunity. We dissect this information together, promoting collaboration rather than letting suspicion divide us further." The nods in response sparked an ember of hope, but Ethan couldn't shake the shadows lurking on his periphery. How far did these betrayals extend? As he wrapped up the session, Ethan's mind drifted back to the vulnerability he'd promised to showcase. Would raising the stakes of trust during such a threatening time solidify their bond or beckon further betrayal? With each inquiry, self-doubt clawed at him. "Thanks for being here, everyone," he concluded, his voice wavering slightly. "I want you to remember that we can't let fear dictate our actions. We will confront this together." He observed solemn expressions across the room as they filed out, each wrapping their minds around the revelations that had just unfolded. Just as the atmosphere lightened, Anna lingered, stepping closer. "Ethan," she started, her voice a whisper cloaked in concern. "Are you sure about this? What if they see your openness as a weakness?" Her question punched through layered walls of his self-assurance, challenging his recent decisions. Could he afford to be exposed when facing an unseen enemy within? Every instinct screamed caution, yet he knew he could not lead from a place of fear. "I can't lead any other way," he responded finally, a burning resolve surfacing through doubt. "But I need to ensure we all step up. Everyone must show their true colors now." As they exited, a thought gripped Ethan. Would revealing his vulnerabilities unearth loyalty or further fractures within an already crumbling foundation? The weight of uncertainty pressed down anew, but the notion of shared strength warmed his resolve. Though he had fostered a strategy, this newfound information swirled chaotic questions in his mind, priming him for the decisions ahead. He had reignited the path toward connection, yet it lay fraught with peril. What breaths would he take next in confronting his team's darkness, and who among them might be lost to daylight's revealing glare? Ethan spent the following days in a mental fog. The tension from the meeting with Justin hung heavily over him, morphing from mere concern into a pervasive atmosphere of unease. Each encounter with his team felt like walking on a tightrope, balancing his commitment to transparency against the instinct for self-preservation. Determined not to let suspicion fracture their unity, Ethan decided to implement daily check-ins with his team. These informal gatherings aimed not only to assess progress on their projects, but also to boost morale and cultivate a deeper connection among members. As he prepared his opening remarks for their first check-in, he felt the weight of his words. How could he urge them towards trust when his own foundation felt unsettled? Facing the team assembled in the small conference room, Ethan noticed the air was thick with apprehension. They wore cautious expressions, mirroring the hidden fear swirling in his mind. He cleared his throat, attempting to project calm and confidence. "Thank you for being here," he began, keeping his tone steady. "Over the past weeks, things have felt uncertain, I know. It's crucial that we navigate these rough waters together." He glanced around the room, the heaviness of their gazes sinking into his resolve. "We need to focus on our work and trust each other. Trust is more important now than ever. Let's talk through what we're doing and how we can collectively move forward." Responses were slow to come, stumbles of acknowledgement and hesitant nods. Anna, sitting to his left, spoke up. "Ethan, it's hard to shake the feeling that someone among us isn't being honest. It's disheartening to think that distrust is lurking within our walls." Her words struck hard, a reminder of the lurking shadow he feared. He could feel all eyes turning to him, waiting for a reassurance he was struggling to convey. "I understand," he replied, legs tense under the table. "But rather than allowing suspicion to fester, we need to actively create an environment where every voice matters. We're here for each other. Let's ensure everyone feels safe to speak." Ethan's resolve to embrace vulnerability quaked momentarily, revealing a nagging doubt that echoed in the silence that followed. Was he naive to think that openness could combat the treachery at play? As the meeting progressed, he observed shifts within his team. Sincere conversations began to arise, ideas flowed, and laughter, albeit tentative, pierced through the tension. He marveled at the transformation, but each spark of connectivity ignited a flicker of anxiety. What if this newfound trust exposed malfeasance? Later that evening, Ethan pored over his notes alone in his office. As he connected the dots between the presentations and discussions, something began to crystallize in his mind. A pattern, a subtle thread connecting revelations that could deepen his understanding of the situation. Suddenly, a realization struck him. A particular project had seen discrepancies in reports, projects that involved a rotating team of collaborators. If the leaks were tied to trust violations, it stood to reason that these snippets of betrayal could originate from within those loops. As he scribbled down names and initiatives, the ground beneath his certainty shifted again. This wasn't merely a climate of suspicion. This was a thoroughfare of interconnected roles and hidden agendas. Ethan felt the enormity of his task expanding. Not only did he need to foster loyalty, but he also had to scrutinize the very structure of trust he aimed to cultivate. He took a moment, running a hand through his hair, echoing the weight of leadership that pressed upon him. This wasn't just about his team anymore. This was about navigating a treacherous labyrinth of potential betrayals while trying to remain the beacon of honesty and integrity that they needed. What had begun as simple check-ins had spiraled into a complex web, testing not just individual loyalties, but the entire foundation of his leadership. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Would he confront the emerging fractures with unwavering strength, or would his journey toward uncovering the truth solicit a reckoning that he wasn't prepared to face? The stakes were rising, and Ethan could sense a confrontation looming on the horizon, one that would strip away pretense and force him to grapple with the bitter realities of loyalty and deception. Ethan awoke to the sound of his alarm, the weight of the previous day's revelations still pressing heavily on his mind. Each tick of the clock echoed the urgency of his internal struggle. He needed to act wisely, but doubt clung to him like a shadow. The web of potential betrayal loomed large, and the thought of confronting his team, the very people from whom he sought integrity, gnawed at his stomach. After a quick shower, he dressed with careful precision. This wasn't just about looking the part of a leader. It was about embodying the confidence he desperately wanted to project. He focused on each detail, his tie, his shoes, trying to conjure a sense of control over his chaotic thoughts. With each small decision, he reminded himself of the trust he aimed to reignite and the vulnerability he needed to embrace to navigate the impending storm. From the moment he entered the office, he felt the atmosphere shift. The morning energy was laced with tension. Each team member focused intently on their tasks, casting furtive glances his way. Ethan took a deep breath before calling everyone into the conference room. Each step felt weighted, the gravity of his role pressing heavily on him. As they settled, Ethan noticed a pervasive unease etched on their faces. "I want to address something important today," he began, the words tumbling out as he grappled for control. "We're facing challenges that question our trust in one another. I've heard your concerns, and I feel them too. We need to be honest about our work and about each other." A murmur of acknowledgement swept through the room, yet hesitant faces remained. It was Anna who broke the silence again. "Ethan, the more we discuss trust, the more I question whether we're really safe sharing our thoughts here. It's like we're supposed to put on a brave face while uncertainty lurks." Her candidness struck a chord with Ethan.
This was the moment to peel back the layers of hesitation. "I hear you, and I feel the same way," he admitted, his tone softer now. "It's easy to feel powerless. But what if we dedicated this time to confronting the discomfort? Instead of tiptoeing around the issues, let's bring them to the light. If something is wrong, let's tackle it together." His words hung in the air, stirring the team into a quiet hum of uncertainty. Was this truly the path he wanted to take? The stakes felt higher than ever. The idea of exposing vulnerabilities, not just for himself, but for the entire team, was daunting. After a fleeting moment of silence, a voice from the back spoke. Carlos, a junior team member who had consistently stayed behind the curve of the group's dynamics. "If we're pulling back the curtain, I'd like to say I've noticed some things. I've seen inconsistencies in project updates and how information is shared. I've wondered if maybe there's a reason we're not fully aligned." Ethan felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Relief that someone had voiced concerns, and dread at the implication. This was the confrontation he had both anticipated and feared. "What do you mean by inconsistencies?" he asked, his voice steady but charged with curiosity. As Carlos delved deeper into the specifics, Ethan found himself focused not just on the content, but on the vast implications. This wasn't merely a matter of miscommunication. It was a deeper rift within the very foundation of their collaboration. A realization dawned. This conversation was peeling back layers, revealing not just issues with workflows, but the very nature of their interpersonal dynamics. He glanced around the room and noticed nods of agreement and a few furrowed brows. The tide was shifting, and he could sense it. Would this process lead them toward a raw confrontation of their fears, or would it spiral into chaos, unraveling the facade they'd built? As the dialogue continued, Ethan felt the stirrings of a plan forming in his mind. A complex web of reviewing each project closely, redistributing responsibilities for oversight, creating a system that ensured transparency at each level. It required bravery, forging ahead into the unknown yet again. But he felt emboldened. There was potential here, not only for professional growth, but for deeper interpersonal connections, mending what had been torn. But as the meeting wrapped up and the team began to filter out, Ethan's heart raced. The truth he could sense was just beyond reach, hanging like a specter, unsettling yet tantalizing. He couldn't shake the feeling that the answers he sought were interconnected with the very people he was working to trust. What might await him if he dug deeper? Would they all emerge stronger, or would this become a treacherous journey of exposing not only risks, but also deeper fractures among them? The uncertainty gnawed at him. Tomorrow's meeting had the potential to unveil even greater truths. The path he would take seemed poised to challenge every ounce of loyalty he had sought to foster. And as he glanced one last time at the door through which his team had exited, he understood that his reckoning had only just begun. Ethan arrived early the next morning, determined to shape stronger bonds while facing the complexities that lurked beneath the surface. As he walked into the office, he could feel the lingering tension from the previous day's revelations wrap around him like a second skin. The fluorescent lights flickered with an unsettling rhythm, and he could almost hear the pulse of his anxiety echoing through the quiet. He settled into his desk, eyes darting toward the meeting agenda he had meticulously crafted. Today was different. He aimed to implement the transparency plan that had emerged from their group discussion. He wanted to facilitate an environment where every voice mattered, but doubts began creeping in again. Would his attempts to mend the fraying threads of trust only further expose their weaknesses? With a firm grip on the notepad in his hand, Ethan began jotting down thoughts for the meeting. He needed fresh, engaging methodologies to spark open discussions. How could he encourage his team to be honest without creating an atmosphere of defensiveness? What would it take to truly rebuild trust? The questions ricocheted in his mind, battling against his growing resolve. As the clock ticked closer to 9 a.m., the familiar faces of his team began filtering in, a mixture of anticipation and apprehension playing out before him. Anna was the first to greet him, a hesitant smile shadowed by the undercurrent of uncertainty that had permeated their dynamic. "Ready for round two?" she quipped, although her eyes searched for reassurance. Ethan nodded. "Let's make it count." They gathered around the table, and as he looked at each team member, the weight of responsibility settled firmly on his shoulders. "Thank you all for being here," he started, his voice steady. "Today, we're diving deeper into our collaboration. I want us to lay everything on the table. Let's honor our vulnerabilities, but also identify solutions together." He noticed Carlos fidgeting, an eagerness tempered by fear of judgment. It reminded him of his own uncertainties. How often had he hidden behind a veil of professionalism while battling his own fears? With newfound courage, Ethan invited Carlos to lead the conversation, a calculated decision to lighten the pressure on his teammate while demonstrating faith in their shared strength. Carlos hesitated, but slowly began sharing insights that mirrored his initial observations from yesterday. This time, he was met with an unexpected wave of support from the others, encouraging him to elaborate. Relief washed over Ethan as he witnessed their readiness to engage. It was as if the storm clouds were beginning to part. Trust isn't just about transparency and project updates. It's about how we communicate when things go wrong, Anna chimed in, her voice gaining confidence as they exchanged ideas. We need a safe space where we know we can count on each other. Not just as colleagues, but as individuals with specific strengths and weaknesses. Ethan interjected, "We can establish weekly check-ins to assess not just projects, but where we stand with each other, emotionally, intellectually, professionally." As he spoke, he envisioned a new culture, one where collaboration didn't just revolve around tasks, but around the humanity that drove them. But just as optimism began to bloom, a voice from the back emerged, Mark, who had been unusually quiet. He shifted uneasily, eyes clouded with skepticism. "This all sounds nice, but what if some team members aren't willing to be honest? What if they've ulterior motives?" Ethan felt his stomach churn at the accusation, understanding it was a reflection of anxiety rather than personal attack. He took a deep breath, allowing the silence to linger, knowing it was crucial to address Mark's concerns directly. That's a fair question. Two things. First, we can't control others' actions, only our responses. Second, vulnerability is a two-way street. If we create the right environment, it fosters accountability. Ethan's conviction reverberated through the room. Would this become the catalyst for deeper honesty, or just another superficial attempt to smooth over their issues? The tension was palpable, yet he felt a flicker of something else, possibility. As discussions continued, Ethan bore witness to emotional transformations. The team leaned into discomfort, and even Mark seemed to soften. They laid bare their fears and frustrations in ways that brought clarity not just to their tasks, but to their interpersonal dynamics. Each revelation felt like an invitation to genuine connection they had only dared to glimpse before. Yet, amidst these collective breakthroughs, doubt whispered insistently in Ethan's ear. Could he depend on these moments of openness? How would they handle the inevitable slipbacks? He felt twinges of anxiety, realizing that authenticity comes with the price of exposure and risk. As the meeting adjourned, Ethan's heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. The effort felt worth it, yet something in the air suggested unfinished business. He glanced at the empty chairs where his teammates had been seated, each one representing a story still untold. Would they continue to foster this new culture? Or was this just a fleeting moment, a false dawn in their journey? Tomorrow's conversation promised to surface deeper truths that might either solidify their bonds or expose fractures he had yet to imagine. Ethan's mind raced as he prepared to confront the complexities that lay ahead. Ethan stood at the edge of his office, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape, now bathed in the warm glow of the evening sun. He didn't recognize the man who had once confidently embraced the world of corporate power and privilege. A profound transformation had unraveled within him, one ignited by the vulnerability he had witnessed in his father and the subsequent turmoil within his company. This new reality offered clarity, one that he wasn't prepared to tuck away behind suits and accolades. The meetings that had followed their last chaotic gathering had birthed a culture that thrived on honesty, courage, and communal integrity. Daily check-ins evolved into heartfelt dialogues where fears were aired as openly as aspirations. The previously sterile conference room now radiated a sense of rejuvenated purpose. Camaraderie infused every discussion, aligning their goals and values as one cohesive unit. Ethan recalled the moment when Anna had commended him for opening the floor. She had expressed gratitude for fostering a safe space and for giving each of them the platform to reclaim their voices. He had never imagined that confronting betrayal and vulnerability would unify them so profoundly. With each honest exchange, Ethan felt an undeniable weight lifting from his shoulders. The recent board meeting solidified this newfound direction. When financial discrepancies among team members had emerged again, rather than turning suspicion toward one another, they collectively collaborated to ascertain the truth. No finger-pointing, only questions grounded in mutual respect. Ethan, Dan had said after that gathering, a look of profound respect in his eyes. The way you foster trust is exemplary. You've transformed our entire framework. Just think, this started with your courage to be vulnerable. Those words echoed in Ethan's mind, ringing true. It was more than just team ethos. This was a reclamation of values that once felt buried under the weight of ambition. Now, as twilight enveloped the city, he leaned against his desk, reflecting on the decisions he had faced. The specter of betrayal had evolved into an unparalleled opportunity for growth. Each member of his team authentically reconstructed their core values around loyalty, integrity, and accountability. Ethan's resolve had shifted from a quest for personal gain to a genuine desire to build a legacy worth something far greater, one rooted in respect and familial ties. The ultimate achievement materialized last week with a significant corporate initiative that had garnered accolades across the industry. The award showcased not only their financial prowess, but more importantly, the essence of collaboration and ingenuity that sprung from their newly unified spirit. Recognition came not just for the numbers, but for the heart behind the operations, and it sang to Ethan's soul. Looking down at his phone, he saw a message from his father. "Proud of you, Ethan. You've built something beautiful. Remember, it takes true strength to lead with your heart." A smile eased the tension in his chest. He felt lighter, more unencumbered than ever. His father, once an emblem of strength, had become a pillar of wisdom in this journey. With newfound clarity and commitment, Ethan turned to his office window, gazing once more at the reflective skyline before him. "This is just the beginning," he whispered to himself, understanding that triumph was now defined by the connections he forged rather than the empires he amassed. He approached his desk and opened a blank document titled Vision for the Future. The letters began to flow, outlining not only future goals for the company, but a promise to uphold the unity they had fostered. In this endeavor, he concluded, he could
chart a path that will transcend simple business measurements, one rooted in honor and foundation of familial values. Ethan felt ready to embrace the next chapter of this evolution, unwavering in his belief that leadership must stem from authenticity. As the city lights flickered on against the velvet night, he knew he had stepped out of the shadows. Now the future looked brighter than he ever dared to dream. Each step forward was a testament not just to personal transformation, but to the power of connection and collaboration. Now, this is the moment to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Ethan's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.